Welcome, everyone, to the Cyberphysics Podcast, where we unravel the complex web of cybersecurity through the lens of its foundational principles. I'm your host, and today, we embark on an intellectual journey that mirrors the intricacy of physics itself. Joining us are two remarkable experts, Ranghan Venkatraman and Sue Bergamo, as we delve into cyberphysics in essence.
Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate being here. Sue Bergamo, longtime CIO, CISO, I still have a great career. Made the move into cyber about 8 years ago, and while you never really give up the CIO portion of it, because you're always working with IT, um, by nature, I'm a nurturer, and so I have found the ultimate career being able to take care of people, right? Companies, employees, customers. I just really like to take care of people. And this has just been a really fantastic journey for me. So I'm working independently in my own consulting firm now and enjoying the customers that I have worldwide. And I provide all kinds of either fractional or executive advisory services to a lot of startups in the cyber field. But mostly, I'm having a great time working for folks that want to make a difference in the industry. And my goal is to just help secure a little portion of the world, and hopefully collectively we can all secure the whole thing. So that's a sort of a tall order, but I'd like to at least get a little corner of it together. So that's my story.
Thank you for that. I'm Ranghan Venkatraman. I head up three companies: Resilience that focuses on AI, Pinnacle that focuses on cybersecurity, and Curious that focuses on edtech. So we are basically in the squarely in the hot seat with AI, cybersecurity, and with edtech. Love all three areas extremely, and I think they're all super linked. Pinnacle, focuses exclusively on cybersecurity and leverages a lot of AI to deliver cybersecurity solutions. We're also a platform company, and we also, bake in services in it because you have to bring sort of an eclectic mix into the equation to support a customer end to end. So maybe on a follow-up call, we can share what we exactly do. But this is a space that we absolutely love, and it's a journey that allows us to sort of grow taller than the problem, because the problem continues to grow bigger. The only way you can really solve it is to grow taller than the problem on a continuous basis. So that's really what keeps us going. So, we generally like to meet people in the industry, exchange ideas and thoughts, and hopefully it benefits the audience. So, from your work, in the space, what are you seeing as some of the latest trends, and why do you think the audience should care?
Well, that's an interesting question because I spend a lot of time with smaller companies, startups, Series A's. And what I look for and what I kind of have a good nose for is smelling out the ones that are really innovative. And I mean, truly doing something different. And those are the ones that I like to spend time with. They're a lot of fun. And because I work with so many different companies, I see the patterns of what's going on out there. And I see a couple of things. There's some new companies out there that have taken identity and access management to an all new game. And I won't mention any company names right now. That won't be fair, but there are some really cool technologies. And IAM personally has been beaten to death. I mean, really, when a company calls me and says, "Oh, I'm in identity and access management," I'm like, stop right there. If you don't have anything that's different, I'm not even going to continue this conversation. But there are some really cool technologies coming out that are going after cyber criminals and literally poking them in the eye. And I'm just so excited about some of them. The other thing is I see a convergence of some higher level, I'm going to call it SIM vulnerability CASB solutions, and those companies that are out there taking SIM to the next level are also very exciting because I hate that phrase single pane of glass. What it really is about putting the analytics together so that we as CISOs understand what's coming at us. And they're really, and again, I don't want to call it a single pane of glass, but the analytics have gotten so much better. And they've gotten so much better because we've moved strictly from ML to ML and AI. And the AI brings a whole different category and level of analysis and insights that just weren't there before. So I'm really excited about what I'm seeing in the industry. And it's an exciting time to be in cyber.
So maybe a little bit more on the IAM stuff on where do you think it's going? Like you said, you don't need to name companies, but maybe you can, share where you see the technologies actually poking the eye of the attacker or providing, better defenses. What do you think is going on there? And what are the game changer technologies that are sort of at play that you feel so strongly about?
Yeah, it's it's not enough, right? Like you have to have your defenses, and I'll get out of IAM for a second. You have to have your endpoint security, you have to have MFA, you have to have VPN, right? Like you have to do those things. It's just table stakes. It's just another layer of protection. But when it comes to identity and access management, it's not enough to just have those foundational items. And some of the technologies that are out there today, and again, it's AI that's bringing, this increased awareness, in this space to all of us, is making it almost foolproof. That if there is someone sitting at the end of a device, that you know exactly who it is. I don't know if everyone heard about the CFO the deep fake CFO that supposedly called a financial analyst and the company's out $25 million. I mean, that's really an unfortunate event, but it happens because the technology has gotten so good. And AI, isn't perfect, but of course the cyber criminals are using it as well. So, as I say to CISOs, don't be afraid of AI. Use it to your advantage to find and defend against these cyber criminals. So it's really AI is what I'm excited about in IAM because it's helping us to identify and defend against these criminals.
But let's talk about a scenario when the same tools are available both to the attacker and the defender. So, for example, if you take FireEye, they got hacked by the same tools that they use to defend their customers. And in that race, how do you see things play out?
I'm going to head down a whole different path with you because this seems to be the theme over the last several weeks. And again, I'm a pattern watcher by trade. So I like to talk to anyone that I can about engineering practices, or I should say the lack of secure engineering practices. So, we've all figured it out, right? The network is, perfecting the perimeter, protecting the perimeter. We've all perfected that. We get it, right? Start with the network, make sure that it's surrounding your environment, if it's your DMZ or your firewalls or whatever it is that you're using, we've got that down pat and we've got the technologies to monitor the network. We're good. But when companies have issues, software companies, right, like FireEye, and I can name so many other ones that, there are big breaches. It's not the network that they're getting into. Yes, credentials may be compromised on some, engineer or lead engineer, but really what happens in most cases is that some cyber criminal comes in on a vulnerability in their own software. And that's exactly what happened with FireEye. That led to the whole SolarWinds breach, which, now we're all facing, what's happening to Tim Brown, right? In this next wave of the SEC going after a CISO. So I am here to ask every engineer that's listening to this podcast that if you don't have a secure coding practice that you're working with, that you ask or you find one and you begin to bring in some champions to help you in your own organization. And I'll give you a huge tidbit. OWASP top 10, just start there. There's never been a pen test that I've seen that hasn't had an OWASP top 10 vulnerability on it. So if you just code securely with that principle in mind, you probably get rid of a whole bunch of them. And then, we'll go on and work to the other thing. And I'm going to take this one step farther. I was laughing with someone yesterday who posed the question about security and compliance. And most people don't understand that they are two separate areas of responsibility for the CISO, but they complement one another. And, everybody thinks, oh, I'll just bring in some monitoring tool and I'm secure. That's only one half of the battle. It's people, process, and tech. And compliance is the process and the procedures that lead people to have more secure practices. So, the reason that companies are going for things like the SOC 2 or ISO 27001 or HIPAA or FedRAMP, or, just pick one, is because they're there to implement security controls that help not just the engineers, but the network admins and the HR people and the finance people and everyone across the board have better security awareness. So I'm a big proponent, people, process, tech. And just for a shameless plug, if you want to learn more about this, you can go read my new book, So You Want to Be a CISO. Find it on Amazon. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. It's not that hard.
No, thank you for that overview. A shameless plug. My book just got released. It's called Brand. It's BRAND, separated by periods. So congratulations on your book. And if you're willing to be interested in partnering in future book or writings, I'm happy to do it in the security space as well. So just leaving that with you.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yes, we should. And no, I like your answer. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to look at things from a multi-pronged approach, especially the compliance angle and the angle of how you look at risk. The question, however, which is an interesting one, is I was recently speaking to one of my clients, and I said, "You're actually." The customer was thinking he was paying us a lot of money, and I said, "No, you're not." I said. The reason for that is that you're just basically playing to participate in security. But to win in security is a different ballgame altogether, and it requires a different investment profile. Most companies today are just playing to participate. They check a few boxes and hope that it works. In this, there's a lot of inherent challenges, right? The CISO gets blamed when there is a problem, there's a breach or an incident. The security vendors do get blamed because they need somebody to throw mud at, and so the real challenge that I also see in advising companies, working with them as well as being their vendor, is that one of the things that we constantly worry about is how do you ensure that the customer does the right thing when the advice is provided. Case in point, Comcast in the Infinity division essentially had one patch that didn't get done, and here you go, you had an incident. And then, of course, the same thing happened with Capital One. There was a misconfiguration on the firewall. Then you had, Equifax that went through a very expensive breach. But all of these things, require us not necessarily to be intelligent, but less stupid, in other words. And so one of the things that we really aim for is how do we be less stupid? Because I think intelligence is available in fairly great abundance, but what seems to be in scarcity is being less stupid. So your thoughts?
How long do we have for this podcast? So
we can always have a follow-up for sure.
I love that you said, how do we be less stupid? But I think I'll turn it around on a little bit more positive note, which is how do we educate people to take less risk and be more secure? So everyone believes, I'm going to make a general statement, that it's the CISO's problem, right? Just like the back office applications were the CIO's problems, right? Well, security isn't just the CISO's problem. it's everyone's problem because it takes a village to secure, whatever it is that you're trying to secure. It takes a village. We need more eyes and hands. And I know that everybody has an opinion on how it should work, but we're there to make sure that we're plugging up the holes. The first thing that we do is we assess an environment and see where those gaps occur. And then we assign a maturity level to it so that people understand. And the maturity level is usually 1 through 5, right? So 1 being low, 5 being high. I've never seen a 5, but not to say that they're not out there. But then you put in a program that strives to continuously improve. And even if things change, like if a company is at a 2 and then they do a merger and acquisition and they could go back down to 1 again, but that's okay, right? You just keep continuously improving and working that program until it makes sense. But the problem is that people really don't want to talk about risk, right? It's somebody else's problem. And if a CISO understands the importance of risk management, they can bring it to the executive team, they can bring it to the board, and they can have meaningful conversation. But one of the things that I caution and counsel CISOs on is please don't bore those individuals with the details of an attack, right? Like what I mean by that is you never ever go to the CEO of a company and say, oh, we got hit a million times this month. Like that brings about a whole bunch of questions that you don't want to answer and don't need to, because more often than not, no one's getting through, right? Most companies are getting attacked millions of times a month. It's the occasional one time that a cyber criminal comes through that you do want to talk about. And you talk about it not necessarily in the details, and I'm going to go back to that in a second, but you talk about it from a framework of how did it impact revenue, go to market activities, and brand reputation. That's what the board and the ELT is looking for, not how many bits and bytes and kinds of attacks. Okay, if it's ransomware, it's ransomware. Just call it what it is. You don't need to spell it out for them. Their heads will explode. So this is what I try to explain to people. Be smart about how you're trying to approach risk. The other thing is there's different levels of risk, right? At the board and executive level, you're going to talk about company, economic, and competitor risk. You're not going to talk about operational risk, but you should be having an operational risk board lower down in the organization so you could find things that individuals like engineers or the IT team or whoever should be working on. But you would never bring those things to an executive level unless it impacts revenue or brand reputation, right? And so those are the things that I would counsel CISOs on.
A related question, however, I think, we all know this. Playing the defensive game is a lot harder than playing the offensive game, because the offensive game, you just need to be right 1 out of 100 times. On the defensive side of the fence, we just need to be wrong just 1 time out of 100, and then you're done. So the real question, is in projecting one's story, sometimes, like you said, there are people who are compelled to talk about all the incidents that got blocked, couldn't make it. So that in that one incident where you don't get it right, you can at least pull a story that says, 1 out of 1 trillion times, we were wrong, but, nearly 1 trillion times we were right. Because if that one story, happens to be a bad one, all that effort that went in and the investments that went in to do the defensive obviously does not get any sort of recognition in any shape or form, and then they're all fixated and putting the microscope on the one thing, and then not recognizing the other things that went right. Because many organizations are in a spectrum. They've made a lot of progress, but they still have a lot way to go. So in that distance, do you measure how far you've come, or do you have to measure how far you go? Because how far you go is going to be a journey for most companies, because investments don't come all at once, they trickle in. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think it's a balancing act, right? So once you have that assessment and that maturity, measure, at least in my program. Then I lay it out and I do it very simply, because again, you can't bring in too much detail to people that don't understand what you're talking about. And I mean that in the nicest of ways. It's our craft. Don't just talk in technology. But I do a simple red, yellow, green diagram that shows very visually where we are and what we need to do. And then you talk to people about what is the most critical areas that you need. And sometimes the CISO has to make a choice. And in my program, I always solve for ISO 27001 because it's the hardest one to do. It's the most effective in my view. Everything else falls underneath ISO. It doesn't mean that I need to certify, but I always go for the highest level of the framework. And so, sometimes I just have to pick 3 or 4 control areas, especially if I'm starting from the ground floor up. Or maybe I have a control that's halfway there, but not quite. That would be an easy one to do, right? Let's go get it done. You're halfway there. And really involve people in the organization to help, right? Get those champions, because the more that you involve individuals across the organization, the more apt they're going to support your efforts. And be reasonable with what you're trying to do. Start slow. If it's something new that no one understands, make sure you're educating. And that's really where the defense mechanism comes in. The more that you can train and educate your users to stop phishing attacks because they identify the threat, life goes on a lot easier for the CISO. There are always going to be things like gaps that are going to, crop up and that we're going to identify. That's why we have continuous monitoring. But the more that you can get employees to understand the threats that are out there, the better you'll be. And, something as simple, it happens all the time. I go into companies all the time to assess their security posture, right? And right from the beginning, as soon as I stand at the front door and somebody inevitably wants to be nice and they open the door, they have no idea who I am. Hi, do you want to come in? Sure, I say, right? And right from there, they have no idea who I could be. And that's X number one, right? So it's the simplest of things that get you. But it is the simplest of things.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I'd love to have a follow-on as well. But to keep this within a certain time frame for the listeners, how would you like to sort of bow tie this in terms of key messages that you believe uh, listeners should take notice, especially CISOs and maybe executives in companies that care about cybersecurity but perhaps do not know enough about it?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll go back to I have a chapter in my book that says last thoughts. It literally is the last chapter. And I say a couple of things in that chapter. One, if you don't know where to start somewhere, right? Pick a framework. I don't care which one you pick, right? CIS, CSF, NIST, ISO, SOC, just pick a framework and start there. If you don't know what to do, ask for help, right? Just ask. But understand that it's not just tech, and it's people, process, tech, and they all go together. And the optimization of technologies through automation is going to get you a more efficient security environment. Um, but honestly, it's not, putting in a security program isn't hard. What's hard is the constant identification of threats and the defending against threats when they attack and they get through. That's hard. But when you're well equipped and you have good skills, and the other thing I would say is make sure your staff is cross trained. So in case somebody's out, somebody else knows what to do, and do tabletop exercises and make sure the staff is prepared well in advance of an attack. Because the last time, or I should say that you don't want to train during the moment. You want to be well aware of what you're going to be doing and how to do it in advance. Those are my guidelines.
Thank you. And you may want to repeat the name of the book again for the audience and hopefully where they can find it. I'm sure they'll be interested in reading it.
Yes, thank you. It's called So You Want to Be a CISO. I'm on Amazon. I'm on Barnes and Noble. You can find me. It's an easy read. And for anyone watching this podcast, if you'd like to link with me on LinkedIn, Sue Bergamo, you'll find me. I think I'm the only one there. Just put a little note in your invitation saying that you saw this on this podcast, and I'll let you in. But thank you for having me today.
Thank you. We look forward to more in the future, but great having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As we wrap up this enlightening episode of the Cyber Physics Podcast, we want to express our deep appreciation to our insightful guests, Ranghan Venkatraman and Sue Bergamo, for sharing their wisdom with us today. Cyber physics, in essence, has indeed brought us closer to understanding the intricate forces that govern our digital world. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to navigate the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity. Stay connected, stay informed, and remember, the essence of cyber physics is ever present in our connected reality. Until next time, keep exploring and seeking the equilibrium between innovation and safeguarding. Thank you for joining us on this captivating journey.